Hi everyone, it's Josh with Talk About Trek, and we're back again today with the next installment in our TNG numbered series, Star Trek The Next Generation number 22, Imbalance, the new novel by V.E. Mitchell. And from the top here, a mysterious alien race holds a secret that could destroy the USS Enterprise. Let's just jump right to the back. Star Trek The Next Generation Imbalance. The Jarada are a mysterious race of insectoid beings with an extreme devotion to protocol. While this usually reclusive race offer to open diplomatic relations with the Federation, Captain Picard and the USS Enterprise are quickly ordered to Jarada to negotiate the exchange of ambassadors. When the ship arrives, the Jarada seem uncharacteristically friendly. They invite Picard to send down members of his crew, and negotiations proceed both quickly and smoothly. Suddenly, however, the Jarada change. They cut off Commander Riker and his away team from the USS Enterprise and initiate an unprovoked attack on the ship. Now Picard must unravel the aliens' mystery before it's too late for the away team and the USS Enterprise. Again, I'm going to once again restate my point. If you're going to get into the book, just don't bother reading the back. If you know you're going to read it, just save yourself, because they spoiled some stuff on here. I didn't know that they were going to get cut off and all that bad stuff was going to happen. So, anyway, let's just jump right into this book, because this was interesting. All right, so, Imbalance by V.E. Mitchell. That's Vicky Mitchell. She wrote this in 1992. Like I said, it starts out with the Enterprise specifically being called in to negotiate with the Jarada. If the name sounds familiar to you, then you are a fairly hardcore watcher of the series. The Jarada were mentioned in Season 1 in the episode The Big Goodbye, and that was where Picard was stuck on the holodeck and he had to get off so he could perform this very elaborate greeting ceremony, and he had to practice it and get it just perfectly right, so that they could get this right and be introduced to this race. So at the end of the episode, he does get off, and he's able to get it right and get it perfectly pronounced. But the author was intrigued by the idea of this race, so she picked it up and kind of took it further to the next step. And that's where we're at with this. So they've been called in because basically the Jarada would like to do an exchange of ambassadors. So they put together an away team, kind of covering all of the different bases. And strangely enough, Keiko O'Brien is chosen to be included in the team. And at first I was like, well, that seems like a weird thing. Maybe the author just liked Keiko and wanted to put her in the story. And it turns out that's exactly the case. When I was reading the Voyages of the Imagination for my background on the book when I was done, that's exactly what she wanted to do. She liked the character, wanted to find a way to put her into the story, and did. So the away team consists of Captain Picard, Commander Riker, Counselor Troy, Dr. Crusher, Lieutenant Worf, and Keiko O'Brien. And they beam down and they meet up with the Jaradans. And the Jaradans are an insect-like race, and they're described as having 4 bottom legs attached to like a barrel-like segmented body that then goes up to their upper body, which is also barrel-like. And they've got 4 top arms, 2 big ones to grab stuff, and then like 2 little ones up here to eat with. Kind of like a praying mantis kind of style head. And they get to meet with the first among council. And one of the fun things about this book, and at first it's kind of daunting because you see all these crazy big names, but then they actually take some time to explain it, and it's kind of cool. The first in this book, or the first they meet, is Zelfree Trollin. Zelfree Trollin is the first among council, and he's going to basically take them to kind of prepare them to meet the council. So they get down, they get taken, they get some refreshments, they get to see a little bit more about what the Jaradan lifestyle is like, and it's basically something like an insect colony. They live in a hive, each has their own specific function. And again, from the episode The Big Goodbye, they're very big on protocol. So that when they go to meet the first council, there's this incredibly long and ridiculous greeting ceremony that they have to go through, with a specific greeting to him and a certain bow to this person and a certain wave over here to that person that they have to go through to kind of show to the Jarada sensibilities that they're civilized people. So they have to go through this ridiculous ceremony before they can finally kind of get down to it. And basically everything goes perfectly smoothly, very easily, easier than they ever expected. And they're basically saying, yes, we're ready to exchange ambassadors now. And they go ahead and adjourn and say, great meeting, now let's have some fun. So they want to take each member of the away team to kind of show them some aspect of the society. So first they mentioned to Riker that, we know you're a great musician, let's go take you to, see all of our musicians. And then they want to take Worf to show Worf like some kind of display of combat. They want to show Dr. Crusher their medical facilities. They want to take Keiko on this field trip to show her some kind of like plants and things like that. And they're having like a little bit of a conference about it, and everybody's like, don't split up the away team. Don't split up the away team. It seems like they're trying to split up the away team. And everyone is kind of like somewhat suspicious. Like they don't know exactly what's going on, but you can kind of sense it. There's little hints that, something more is happening here. So everyone's kind of somewhat suspicious. And they say, don't split up the away team. But then Picard, for like the sake of diplomacy, says, everything's going real well here. We really want this to go well. So let's just go along with it. So they split up the away team. So then how the story continues from here, I think, is one of my favorite parts, kind of how this was written, I guess. Because then it kind of, you get on these little individual adventures, and each chapter is kind of giving you a little bit more hint about something's going wrong with this society, and giving you just kind of a different look at it from a different side. It starts with Riker, and he is teamed up with Zelmir Trozarn, and he's the kind of the chief cultural guy there, and he takes them on a very long walk. And this is something that's goes across all the different teams that are sent there. Long walks. It seems like they're always taking them on long, winding walks around, and it seems kind of suspect, like they're kind of either trying to get them lost or trick them or just make them not know where they're going. But he eventually leads them up and up and up, kind of the top of their hive area, until they get to the point where all the musicians are hanging out. And he gets a chance to listen to what's called the Valcorette, which is like the group of these insectoid musicians. And they get down and they jam on some stuff for a little bit. And then they even have Riker bring his trombone. So Riker brings his trombone and starts jamming a little bit too. But then things start getting crazy. One of the musicians like jumps up, starts getting all wild. The other ones run over there, start attacking it. And Zarn, we'll just go with Zelmir Trozarn, kind of see what's going on. And he's like, quick, we got to get out of here. Something's happening. So Riker's like, what? So yeah, and they kind of cut it right there too. So you get like a little bit of, okay, something's happening here, and then they decide they have to escape. So then the next thing it takes you to is Dr. Crusher, and Dr. Crusher is meeting with Zelbrek Trovish. So Zelbrek Trovish is like the chief medical insectoid there on the planet, and she is asking for Dr. Crusher's help and trying to figure out what is going on here. So she's kind of letting on that there is something that they need some help with, and what she is working on is trying to figure out on this planet, how to get these certain nutrients to get into the plants that these people need. So they take like a land car there, and then little clues are dropped that something more is going on, because during the land car ride she can see like fires off in the distance. And then at one point the whole thing is attacked. So they're going across the bridge, it's attacked, and then all of a sudden the Zelbrek Trovish puts up the armor on the car, just takes off at a breakneck speed to get away, doesn't tell Dr. Crusher anything, and that's how that chapter ends. So it's just like, okay, more's going on here. Kind of a weird part in this book with the Keiko section is they wrote Miles as being very, very jealous. First off, he's very mad that she goes down to the planet in the first place, but then they decide to give her an assistant since she's not like an actual Starfleet officer, so they send down an ensign, this Reggie Tanaka, to help her gather specimens and do her job. And Miles is like freaking out. He gets so jealous about it. But basically, her part in the story is she is on a field trip with some teachers and then some of the younger members of that race. So they take a long trip on this field trip, and they're kind of setting up camp out in this wooded area. And she kind of starts feeling a little bit sick during that. not a whole lot happens there to give away more, but they do let you know that Reggie loves trees. So that comes into play later. So now we get the next step. So we've had Riker, we've had Dr. Crusher, we've had Keiko, and now we get Worf. Okay, and then Worf, he's teamed up with Zel-Kel. Oh, I didn't write this down very well. Zel-Kel, we're calling him Breen, Zel-Keltrobreen. And Zel-Keltrobreen is basically going to show him the Valgreshneth. And it's got something to do with their warrior class. But first, before he takes Worf there, of course, he leads him on this big, giant, long walk all around, just like all the other ones. But Worf, being Worf, does what he does and pays very close attention and is able to kind of mentally map the place. And he pays close enough attention that when he enters the Breen enters the code to open the doors, he's actually able to memorize through the tone what the combination is, and that's going to come in real handy for him later. Something that happened here that I thought was funny, that I didn't underline because I should, because it was funny. What they called Worf was Admirably Massive, Admirably Massive Worf Guardian. So I thought that was pretty good. He was pretty massive, especially compared to them. They're all like a little bit smaller. So they show him kind of some of their combat techniques and their forms, and then they ask him to show them some of his techniques. And he's not wanting to give away too much, so he kind of just shows them like a real basic kata. And in the process of doing it, they're like, more, show me more. And he's like, no, that's good for now. And then they freak out and they go crazy, like super crazy. One of them gets so mad that the other ones actually come up and like start ripping him apart because he was going to go nuts on him. So Worf is like, all right, and he bails. Basically, he finds a door and he heads for the exit. So Picard is spared all of this madness. He is actually beamed back to the trip with Troy, or back to the ship with Troy, and they're reviewing the agreement, which, as far as they can tell, doesn't mean a lot because it's written in both Jaradan and then in Federation Standard, and they can't really compare and contrast to see if it really means anything or if it would even be worthwhile. So they give it to Data to look over, and they send it off to Starfleet for review. And it's at that point Miles discovers that they cannot contact the away team. Bum bum bum. The plot thickens. So they can't reach them through communications. They can't pick up their life signs with their sensors. Something is definitely going on there. So we've hit about the halfway point here of the book. We're going to have to speed it up here to the end, I think, because a lot happens here. So again, now you're getting your segmented chapters going through each person's adventure again. Riker, a very fast, very bumpy escape from the madness that was going on with all the musicians there. And because all these tunnels are built for these insectoids, they're just not very easy for humanoids to walk around in, which proves to be some trouble when you are trying to escape quickly. So in the process of escaping, he's getting knocked down into walls. He's sliding down, spiral steps, and basically he's just getting bruised and beaten and battered, covered in mud and slime. At one point, actually sneaks through an area and witnesses the queen of all the Jaradans, who's going through some kind of very hard labor trying to deliver all these eggs very quickly. And so he can see that there's definitely a lot more going on. They get discovered again by more of these crazy people, or these crazy Jaradans, and then gets pushed down another spiral staircase. So he's really got it bad. Just basically a whole chapter of just running and getting bruised and battered and beat up. Dr. Crusher's car ride of horror takes her to a mountain research facility where it's revealed that basically she's been taken hostage to come up with a plan to treat this madness which is coming over all of these Jaradans. Keiko and Reggie Tanaka, they come back from kind of doing a little bit of initial research, find that all of the Jaradans they came with are gone, the camp is deserted, and they follow a little bit of a trail off into the woods and find them out doing a crazy kind of drum ceremony around a bonfire. And at that point, a few of the Jaradans start going crazy there. The fire gets out of hand. They spot Keiko and Reggie, chase after them, try to get them. And what they do is straight out of the Hobbit, They climb a tree. Reggie loves trees, of course, so he comes up with the idea to climb up a tree to get away, and it works like a charm. They're not able to climb up after him, so they just kind of hang out up in this tree and hide there, and even move through the canopy to get back to where they need to be. Worf is still trying to work his way through his escape, and he's running into a couple of Jaradans here and there, and is able to kind of handily take care of them. So you do get, there's a little bit of action in this book, not a whole lot. A lot of it is like kind of like thrilling, escaping, and things like that. But with Worf, you do get a little bit of hand-to-hand combat against these Jaradans, and he throws them around pretty good. But eventually, he's basically, his mission is he needs to get back to his captain. That's what he's trying to do. So he's on his way, working his way through muddy tunnels, slinking around through dead ends and hiding, and eventually is able to work his way back up to the surface. Data is coming up with little bits and pieces of what's going on. So he's been on the ship the whole time, scanning the sector, scanning everything, trying to figure out, why are their sensors not working? What could be going on down the planet? What could they be doing on the planet to be casting this kind of interference out to them? So he's starting to get it pieced together, and that's when several Jaradan ships start coming up and flying towards the Enterprise. And you think maybe, oh, well, geez, they're going to have to do something. No. The Jaradan ships pose no threat, and basically they just kind of bounce off of the shields. So I think they eventually start just beaming the pilots out and kind of putting them under so they can figure out what to do with them. You cut back to Riker now. He's still sliding down spiral stairs. They try to throw a little bit of comedy, or she throws a little bit of comedy here, where the Zorn, who he is still with at this point, slides down after him because he thinks that he's doing it for fun or something. But he is not. He's muddy and bruised and beat up. They do manage to find like a good hiding place, and they kind of hide out long enough. Riker's able to get a little bit of a rest, but he's beat up. His knee is messed up, and he's got scratches on his back that are infected. So he's in pretty bad shape. Again, now they cut back to Crusher. She's convinced that she's got to help, and what she has to do is, without contacting the Enterprise, without having any of her equipment, she's asked by them to basically solve the problem that no one else on their planet has been able to solve. And she's like, what? I mean, come on. But she's going to try to do her best because they got her. There's nothing they can do anyway. So she does say, all right, well, give me all your bioscans. Bioscan everybody again. And right away, like, the doctors there are like, huh? Why should we do that? We don't need to do that. So you can tell already that she's got some ideas that they don't have. So back to Keiko and Reggie in the trees. They're traveling through the canopy. They manage to make it back through their campsite. But the tent is wrecked, which is trouble because Reggie has been scratched pretty badly and is becoming infected. And they're trying to get their medicine. They're trying to get communication somehow. They have one tent that's still okay, so they crawl into that. Reggie passes out, and Keiko kind of does what she can for his leg. But if he doesn't get help, it's pretty clear that he's going to be in trouble. Worf eventually escapes through the tunnels, out of all the tunnels, out of the mud, and gets up to the surface. And it's up at the surface. He sees the main area where they started, like in the government area. It's across this bridge. So he's going to go, he's running across it, and then he falls off the bridge. So he's just having a bad time all around. So back on the ship, Data and Geordi find a way to get around the interference that the Jaradans are sending out, and they're able to finally lock onto someone. And they do beam somebody up, and the first person they beam up is a very wet and very angry Commander Worf, who insists upon coming and making his report to the captain before getting changed or anything like that. So he comes sopping wet to the bridge into the captain's ready room and makes his report and is very upset and looking to basically take some retaliation against these Jaradans here. Another great thing I like about this book is that in the absence of Dr. Crusher, they need to have a doctor on the ship, of course, that they feature. So the author chose to feature Dr. Solar, which is great. I love Dr. Solar, the Vulcan doctor who showed up, I think maybe in just one episode or two. But also, she's in a couple other books, too, that are really great. But I always like to see her character brought into the story whenever possible. but she's working on the ship, and she's trying to work on a solution to figure out why the Jaradans are going mad as well. So you have kind of two parts working separately on the same problem, uh, and hopefully when they get back together, they'll be able to solve this pretty easily. Uh, so there now it cuts back to Riker. He's able to escape with Zarn, and Zarn gets a car and figures a good place to take him. Where do you think he's going to take Riker? Takes him to Dr. Crusher. So things are getting tied up pretty quick in the end here. So Will and Dr. Crusher are reunited there in the end. And basically they brought him to her so that he could be an assistant to help in her process, of figuring out a cure for them. They decide instead they're going to do whatever they can, gather as much information as they can, but their main goal is to escape. And they need to get some equipment so they can broadcast a beacon that the Enterprise will pick up. And Commander Riker is sure that he can do that. And they do. Keiko, back in the tent, wakes up, notices the sounds of Jaradans all around her, is kind of freaking out, thinking the crazy ones are there. But then they're actually just kind of running away because it turns out the little fire that started has turned into a giant forest fire. And it's starting to surround them. So she drags out the unconscious Reggie, and they are by a lake. So she drags him into the lake. And at the last second, a big tree falls down in the lake, and they swim underwater. But luckily, they're able to lock onto their signal just at that time and beam them up. And then she's holding on to this guy, of course, when they beam up. So, and then Miles sees him. And then, of course, the first thing he does when they beam up is he's like, "What are you doing, Keiko?" Thinking that they're in the middle of doing something they shouldn't be doing. But again, she made Miles really jealous in this for some reason. But it was a good suspenseful little part there. A nice little kind of last minute save. So they kind of wrap it all up kind of quickly, or she kind of wraps it all up very quickly in the end, to a pretty satisfying conclusion, I would say. I would have liked to maybe see it fleshed out a little bit more, but all in all, I would say it was pretty good in a way to wrap it up and kind of be like on to the next episode kind of thing. But basically, they are able to find out that there's a deficiency in this planet that is causing the Jaradans to go crazy. So they're able to give them the supplement they need, give them the information they need so they can mine this material themselves and then get it themselves, and they give it to them. And then when they go down there to say that they're going to give it to them, what do? They kidnap them again. They knock them out and they kidnap Picard, and they basically say, we'll let you go if you give us the information. The information they were just about to give them anyway, right? But it's all just the way that this species work, basically, where they have to kind of exchange a hostage for something. So that was the whole reasoning, and that's what they do. They agree that, yes, we'll give you the supplies and the information in exchange for you letting us all go and giving us back our communicators, please. And they do that, and then the Jaradans have one more condition, which is, please don't talk to us ever again. So Picard says, yeah, that's fine. No, that's perfectly fine. And they all beam up to the ship and they warp out of there. Whoop! End of story. So I thought it was really fun. It had a lot of interesting, I guess, like, ideas about the Jaradans and about an insectoid species. There were some fun things going into that. I like talking about their names, which was kind of cool. There was like a whole chapter that they went into talking about what the names mean. Like the first part, Zell, that was their hive. The second part was like their caste. The third part was their job. And then the fourth part was like their actual name. So there's a lot of interesting stuff there. The way that they split the story up with the away teams each having their own little adventure, kind of then picking that back up, was very cool. It was almost kind of like just like a little chase book more than anything, because you really always felt that the characters were on the run or running to or from something. So yeah, really good stuff. I want to point out the cover art, because as you'll see, I actually have the painting here, not the official book cover, because that's what I found. But just have a look at Riker. Have a look at him. Look, seriously. Look closely. I don't know. There's just something about this that it just strikes me as kind of strange. But aside from the little bit strange looking Riker on the cover, this was a great book. and I would recommend it to anyone that wants to read a great Star Trek book. For sure. Now, that is probably the last Star Trek book we're going to have on the channel for, I don't know, maybe a couple weeks, because I have chosen the month of September to be the month when I revisit my very, very, very favorite book of all time, which is The Count of Monte Cristo. And as you can see, this is the Penguin Classics edition, which was translated by Robin Buss, which is the one that I would recommend if you were going to read this absolutely fantastic book, which everyone should do at their lifetime at some point. But yeah, I'm going to dive into this. I've read this many, many times, but for some reason, I've just been feeling it in the back of my head that we need to dive back into the world of Edmond Dantes, and that's what we're going to do. So I don't know if I'll talk about that or not. There's a lot to talk about there, but there will be other Trek things to talk about for sure. I definitely want to talk about Lower Decks, and I want to talk about Star Trek Day, which is coming up here, I think, in just a week or so. So much exciting things to talk about. Looking forward to all of that. So, as always, everybody, thank you so much for watching. Live long and prosper, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.